everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Possession is 9/10 of the law, and if you don't hold it, you don't own it. That is a mantra that I and countless other stackers of silver and gold live by. However, the paper, gold and silver market is huge. It far outstrips the physical market, but it has its potential pitfalls, and that has never been more relevant than this week, as we've seen an electronic provider of gold and silver purchasing and payments go into administration. I am of course talking about Glint. If you don't know what Glint is, go and Google them. Basically, you can buy gold and silver in as many little denominations or high denominations as you like, and then you've got a payment card and you can make payments using your gold when you're out and about. Now that has its clientele, but from my perspective, I would be kind of like, well, if you're going to buy gold, you should be buying gold for something other than to go and spend it, you know, next week when you go out to lunch or something. So there's issues in my mind about whether or not it's an even worthwhile service to have, but it's definitely one that's relevant and interesting to talk about because they've gone into administration, and that does put up into the air a lot of people's hard-earned cash as to whether or not it's safe, secure, whether they are actually going to get their money back or indeed get the gold which they theoretically own. And we're going to talk a lot about that, and then some of the pluses and minuses on paper versus physical gold. So I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section as we go throughout today's video. Please feel free to comment, but bear in mind that today's video is not financial advice. I am just presenting my own opinion. I'm also presenting a commentary about the Glint situation. I did in fact reach out to Glint on YouTube to try and get a comment that we could use in today's video. I didn't get any reply. They're probably quite busy with the administrators, to be fair. But, you know, nevertheless, if you are a Glint customer, I'd highly recommend you go and get in touch with Glint directly. There's a link to their website down in the description. On their main page, there is an email address for the administrators where you can actually go and contact them about, obviously, your situation if you are a customer. So go and have a look at those. But I'll see you down in the comment section for good old fun debate about paper versus physical gold. So let's start at the beginning. So I will always buy physical gold rather than paper gold. That is a very important thing in my head as to why I'd purchase it. And the reason for that is to have the physical wealth in my hand so that I am protected in a situation like this. And I do not like the idea of the funds not being protected. Now, you go onto Glint's website, and you know this is going to be a fairly critical sort of analysis of Glint's kind of presentation, because you look at what Glint's all about on their website, and it really does ring home. You know, there's a safe and secure section. It says your money is safeguarded in segregated client accounts and your physical gold held in one of the largest, most secure, independent and insured vaults in Switzerland. That means that regardless of what happens to Glint and our partners, your gold remains wholly owned by you in your name. Well, that's great. It's held by them in your name. That doesn't mean you're going to get possession of it. It doesn't mean that you're going to own that gold, that you're going to actually be able to use that gold. You know, I'm not going to specifically say that Glint have been doing this, but it's not unheard of for paper and vaulting companies to basically take your money and not do anything, because they're expecting a certain amount of customers to continue to hold their gold within, you know, their system and not take it out. So it's all about having enough float in case somebody wants to take their money out. That is the kind of problem with the paper market. If everybody decides to take their cash out all at once, there's not going to be enough to go around. Now, I'm not accusing Glint of having done that, but there are some very interesting questions that need to be asked of Glint. The fact that they had $5 million worth of funding raised over the last couple of months seems to have burnt through that funding quite significantly. Another thing is that the funds by which, the gold by which they have in their vaults, you know, do you really know that? Do you have, you know, an actual gold bar with your name on it there? Probably not. You know, the whole question of this is about faith and believing that a company that's ultimately very new into the world is going to hold millions and millions of pounds worth of gold and actually deliver on that in a situation by which people want to get their gold out. And of course, Glint is a company, they're there to make money. They'll make microtransactions, micro amounts of money on every transaction that you make as a service provider. And it's in their interest to keep people within their within their system, basically, within their money-making machine. And the biggest thing that I have problems with about Glint is they must have seen this situation coming. They must have known that there was a situation on the horizon where there was some financial instability in their own organisation, and they were going to look to have to go into administration. Yet, even after the administrators were announced, there were social media posts of Glint promoting their services to get people to sign up. And there's a really interesting Twitter post of a chap who just took deliverance of his card and was filling his card up, and then somebody went, "Did you know they've gone into administration?" I went, "Oh, I might have to research this." It just beggars belief that a company that is supposedly responsible enough to hold millions and millions of pounds worth of gold in vaults in Switzerland for you, just is going to go and promote that kind of behaviour, and promote that sort of really. It just seems very money grabby to get those funds in. Perhaps they needed as much money as they could to stave off the administrators. Who knows? You just don't know. The point is that it's a really sad state of affairs when something like this happens, and people's hard-earned cash is at risk here. That is the ultimate problem, and it's all down to the reputation of a company. And in my opinion, this is it for Glint. There's no coming back from this for them. They are done. Whether or not the administrators will be able to salvage something for the future, I don't know. But in my opinion, that's it. They are dead in the water. Nobody's going to trust them again. And it, in my opinion, really hammers home that you can't trust these electronic gold providers out there. I'm just a bit of a cynic in that sense, I have to say. But we've seen it countless times before. Money is a fickle thing, and people will want their money. I did a video a couple of weeks ago that, supposedly London and modern society is 3 days away from complete anarchy if there was a situation that, you couldn't get access to your money. If the banks failed and the ATMs didn't work and you couldn't get the money to, pay for your groceries, or your bank cards weren't working, 3 days would pass and then people would go into anarchy and revolution. That is the idea behind that, and I think it's fairly true. And the problem with places like Glint, which spout off all of these safe and secure messages, when push comes to shove, they're not. And the FSCS, which is the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. Now, if you don't know, in the UK, I think it's fairly similar for many, sort of westernized countries around the world, that your bank account and the funds in your bank account will be, to a certain extent, protected under various different compensation schemes. And in the UK, you get up to £85,000 worth of your funds, and that's per different bank. So if you have 5 different banks, you could, in theory, have 5 times 85,000, which is maths I can't do. I'm just going to do it on my calculator, which is up to £425,000 worth of financial coverage. So definitely something to factor in, and that's kind of standard for most big high street banks, but it's definitely worth checking whether any financial institution that you're investing in and is actually protected by those schemes. And Glint is not, and that came as a surprise to a lot of their customers. Now, I did see on the forum there were a couple of people on the Silver Forum that were Glint customers, and they, when they saw that Glint were going into administration, they tried to withdraw some of the money. It wouldn't go into their bank account, but they could still use the cards to buy stuff on Amazon. So there were a few people who were spending the couple of £100 that they had left in their bank accounts. But if you've got tens of thousands of pounds in those type of accounts, getting that money out is going to be next to impossible, nigh on impossible, in my opinion. Sad state of affairs. And that's the ultimate thing here. If there was a situation that you had to call in the FSCS to bail out your funds in your bank, and you lost 85,000 in your NatWest bank account or your HSBC bank account or whatever it is, it's probably not going to come very quickly. And even if it did, what would that be in the form of? It would be in the form of another number on a screen with another bank. And that's my issue that I have here. All of these electronic gold and silver, paper gold and silver, and even fiat numbers on your bank account, they are just that. They're numbers on a screen. They're promissory numbers that people believe have value. And I guess to a certain extent, gold is in that same category. We as a species have attributed value to gold over the last 5,000 and 6,000 years. So it doesn't necessarily mean that gold is always going to be a valuable thing, but that history speaks for itself. People have constantly run to gold in times of need. It's something that's going to last centuries and millennia, and it is physical. It's something that you can hold as opposed to digital numbers on a screen. And that is the biggest thing for me that sets apart physical and gold, silver. And you can see that throughout history. We've got here a gold coin from 1791, a gold guinea from 1791. Gold has been used as a currency for a very long time. And, it is going to be physical wealth that rules for a significant amount of time. I'm not going to say that one day we will see a complete demise of gold and silver. I do think there will be a place for gold and silver in this world into the future, but I also think that digital currencies will be of a real importance. But ultimately, in a brown stuff hit the fan scenario, I just can't see those digital numbers on a screen holding up. And that's something that I think a lot of people will sympathise with. There are, of course, though, a lot of people, and I suppose in a certain way, I'm one of them. So it's interesting. I'm almost on the fence a little bit about this, because I'm a firm believer in holding the physical stuff here. But I'm also a firm believer that a situation by which you will need to cash out all of your physical gold and silver to actually survive will never happen. I don't think that there will be a huge financial collapse by which you will only be able to sustain yourself if you have some of this shiny precious metal. I am a cynic, and I don't think that's likely. I'm protected if it does happen, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I'll happily own up to that here on YouTube if that happens, but I am not a believer of that. So I'm in an interesting position where, of course, gold and silver plays an important part of our long-term savings portfolio, but it is not the only thing. So I've been quite negative here today about paper gold and silver and digital kind of assets. But ultimately, having things like stocks and shares, having things, investment bonds, saving bonds and things like that, numbers on screens, so to speak, I think is important to have a bit of a diversified portfolio. It's not necessarily the be-all and end-all, though. But if you are going to get gold and silver, in my opinion, one of the absolute positive pluses for owning gold and silver is that physical wealth preservation tool. It's something that you can hold and have in an emergency. So why you would want to have an asset that is meant for something completely different on paper, it doesn't make too much sense for me. The last thing that I will talk on is around glint again. Now, I always had a little bit, I saw about glint about a year ago when they were coming up, and there were lots of forum posts about them, how it was going to be very good. And there's another product out there called Kinesis, which there's a lot of people who talk about as well. And, these are basically gold-backed payment providers, and you can use those, well, you could use glint. I don't know quite if you can anymore, but you can use those to purchase things, and you can have your hard-earned cash converted into gold, and then you can go and spend that gold. That's the thing I have a problem with. Why would you want to spend your gold right now? Now, I know the whole, idea of this is to protect against inflation, but, inflation is only really relevant if there's something that's hyperinflating and going, Pete Tong, like the situation in Venezuela or Zimbabwe. And again, I just don't think those are going to be likely scenarios within the US, within the EU, within modern sort of Western societies. I just can't see that being allowed to happen. It would cause anarchy, it would cause wars, civil wars, rebellions, anarchy. It would not happen. That's just my opinion. So the whole premise of buying gold specifically to spend your gold is a little bit of an oxymoron in my mind. And if you do need to, sort of spend your money on physical gold, I'm a firm believer that gold is a very, very liquid asset. I've seen countless times people being able to sell gold on the Silver Forum, on eBay, down at their local pawn shops or down at the local Atkinson's Bullion in Birmingham or Hatton Garden Metals in London. People have been able to sell their gold quickly and get their funds out quickly when needed. Silver's a different bit of a animal, or a bit of a different animal here in the UK because of the premiums that attach to it with taxes and things like that. But for gold, I just, I see it as money that's in a savings account, but it's, very secure within my own physical ownership. So, there's a different way of looking at things, I'll argue, and I'll agree that there are going to be different people with different opinions about this and about whether holding your gold is the right thing to do. You know, ultimately it's down to individual choice. There are negatives for holding physical gold, of course, once you have, you know, that gold in your possession. If you lose it or it gets stolen or you damage it, it could harm premiums, things like that. Yeah, that's definitely possible. But I think those are, you know, small negatives in the grand scheme of things, certainly compared with a situation like we see with Glint. So I wish everybody who is involved with the Glint situation all the best, and I hope that you can get your funds out of the of that sort of system, and whether or not you actually have ownership of that gold and can take delivery of that physical gold would be interesting. I know if I had, you know, it depends on how much you have in there, but if I had a couple of £100 or you know, maybe £1,000 or something in the Glint system, I would insist on taking delivery of my physical gold, because that is the, you know, the whole premise of their business, that you would buy the gold and it would be in their vaults and it would be in your name, owned by you in your name. Those are the, in fact, the gold remains wholly owned by you in your name, quoting from their website. So I'd be very intrigued to find out whether or not that would be possible to take physical delivery of the gold that's supposedly yours. Yeah, anyway, so comment down below with your thoughts on the Glint situation. Also, I'd love to know whether you're a paper or physical gold supporter. So please let us know down in the description, sorry, in the comment section even, whether you would buy physical or paper and the reasons for doing so. If you enjoyed today's topic and discussion about physical versus paper gold and silver, then please feel free to hit a like. It really does help the channel and share things through the YouTube algorithm. Talking of sharing, if you enjoyed this video and want to share it with friends and family, then please feel free to do that too. And if you want to see videos from myself in the future, hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Otherwise, that is it for today. Thank you one and all for watching. I hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching, and please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.